Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this live talk with STEM Ambassador Margaret. She'll be talking about careers and opportunities in land surveying, and then she'll aim to answer any questions you have, so please put them in the chat. Over to you, Margaret.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Good morning, everyone. A little bit of an introduction to my work as a land surveyor, which I've done for a number of years. As it says on the flyer there, land surveying is using technology, a little bit of that behind me, around the globe, anywhere in the world, and what you're doing is accumulating data to provide information. So we're going to look at the career in terms of WWW, why not? Why, what, why, or how. Let's have a little look. A brief programme, a bit of an introduction. Questions to the audience is now going to go at the end. An opportunity for you to think about land surveying and what it involves. We'll look at typical tasks and locations for land surveyors. The geo industry. We'll look at how you get into land surveying or the geo industry, training opportunities, excuse me, apprenticeships, undergraduate programs, questions from yourself, a bit of a summary and a conclusion. A little bit about myself. Margaret Beach, BSc, MRICS. What do those letters mean? My education background was 7 O-levels, so that dates me. You all now do GCSEs. My O-levels did include maths and English, which are quite important. I did 2 A-levels in geography and chemistry, bit of an odd mixture there. I then went to, in my day, a polytechnic, which is now a university, and studied geography. I got a degree in geography. The course included land surveying, which I quite enjoyed because it was a mixture of outside work and inside drawing. Having graduated, I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity with a local authority, in my case Lewisham Council in South East London, who, if you like, trained me to become a chartered land surveyor, which is what the MRICS letters stand for. Yes, more exams, but it did provide opportunities and gave me career progression. If you need to contact me about any of the information in this, that's my contact details. They'll come up at the end as well. Okay. MIB Land Information Consultants.co.uk. Okay, why be a land surveyor, or part of the geospatial industry as it's now called? If we look at the National Career Services data for land surveyors, they're suggesting an average salary 20 to 50,000. 20,000 for, if you like, entry level trainees, 50,000 for senior surveyors. Obviously, if you're running the Ordnance Survey, you're getting more money than that, but they're averages. Typical hours, 38 to 40 hours a week, which is probably about right. It's not fixed times, particularly if you're doing site work. It's not 9 to 5 because you may be having to travel to a site. It might not take very long on site. Get back, early finish. Yeah. It says there you could work evenings and weekends. That's particularly true. And these days, with a lot of home working, your computer work tends to be done at home. So you tend to do that to suit yourself, evenings and weekends. Okay. What does it involve? Why is it interesting? For me, it's the combination of working outside, gathering information, with working inside on a computer, graphics, that sort of thing, where you're manipulating the raw data that you've accumulated on site for a specific purpose. Maybe a drawing from an architect to design something on. It might be sorting out a building in the right place on a construction site, or it might be mapping a heritage site, Canterbury Cathedral, for example, for archive purposes. Typically, you're out on site, the yellow box and the yellow tripod contain what you see behind me. Here I'm surveying in the cathedral precincts, a building. You know. What potentially can get generated for people is the graphics. Here we've got a section through a roof. Structural engineer, architect, be very interested in this, because if they're trying to put a room in there, this is telling them the shape and what space is available to them. But why be a land surveyor to start your career? Well, one of the benefits is that you get a lot of independence early on in your career. Historically, a number of leading politicians began their careers as land surveyors. We're talking about people like George Washington, President of the United States, Duke of Wellington, more recently Leonid Brezhnev, the Soviet Union. All began their careers as land surveyors. They understood the importance of location, how you achieve location information. Yeah, so it does provide you with independence, because you're the one on site making the decisions. How are you going to use that equipment? How are you going to deal with the people? How are you going to deal with health and safety issues? So what do we have here? We have GPS Johnny sent out on his own to survey a road. Well, sent out with an assistant. He's now responsible for that assistant. Mid-20s, a lot of responsibility. He's got to get the data right for design purposes, and he's got to deal with the locals. Yeah, so a lot of input that helps character forming. On that note, I start with my 10-year-old granddaughter out on site, character forming here. She's using the equipment. How difficult is that? Yeah. Technology has made using the equipment relatively straightforward. A lot of information behind it, a lot of processes go on behind it, but actually using the equipment is relatively straightforward. So there's no worries about that. Okay, independent action. It helps form your character, makes you independent because you're forced to be. Yeah. There's a variety of locations for your site work. You can be sent anywhere. Sometimes it's very nice, Caribbean, yeah, surveying an island. Or it can be the streets of London, yeah, which can sometimes be nice and sometimes not be so nice, yeah. So variety of locations. It's not the office commute to one location, one desk. It can be a variety of sites. So that's some of the reasons why. What do you get up to? Yeah, let's have a little look at that. Mapping is the basis. It's a historic basis of, if you like, the geo industries. Making maps, translating what you see on the ground to a bit of paper. For that we add site engineering, and that's, if you like, the process in reverse. That's taking what you see on a bit of paper that's been designed by an engineer or an architect and putting it on the ground in the right place. You know, site engineering, still part of the geo industry. There's also specialist surveying for heritage, where you're trying to record information for posterity, provide virtual tours, that sort of thing. The utilities, specialist surveying. Why are the drains not flowing? Well, because if you've surveyed them, you'll see why they're not flowing. It's blocked, or it's not. It's meant to be going uphill, or that sort of thing. So specialist surveying. That's a field in its own, whereby you're surveying what's hidden, what's buried under the ground, what makes your TV work, what makes your computer work, the electric supply. And monitoring. Once you've built something, you're going to make sure it doesn't fall down. Yeah, and there's continuous monitoring for things like Houses of Parliament and that sort of thing. It's measurement based. Yeah. How do we know this building isn't sinking into the River Thames? because we're taking continuous measurements. So a little bit of a talk over of typical activities on site with the surveyors. Yeah. So here we are back in the precincts of Canterbury doing some field survey. From that, we're going to get a plan. We're going to get a plan of that building, what it looks like, so that somebody can design something on it. We're also going to get a picture of how it looks when you're standing in front of it. But again, it's all dimensionally correct. The section through the building, all information that's useful to other professions. Here we've got an architect that's designed a housing estate. Yeah, we've got 6 houses he's trying to build. He needs them marked out. That bit of paper needs to translate into the ground. You have to place markers on site, yeah, so that plant can manoeuvre things. Here we are under construction on that same site, yeah. And then finally, when it's all built, you need a plan to transfer that individual property. In this country, we use the land registry. They need proper plans. Okay, sometimes you end up quite nice locations. I've surveyed as far east as Papua New Guinea and as far west as the Caribbean islands. Yeah, surveying it, a completed island map. All products of going out measuring. I've worked underground in the tunnels on the Somme battlefields. I've looked down drains, yeah, underground utilities. Find out where they're flowing, that kind of thing. Some of the work I've produced has ended up on the TV in programmes, military history programmes. And then sometimes it rains all day and it's fairly miserable on site. Yeah. And the main thing to protect is not the individual, but the equipment. You don't want the equipment getting wet. Yeah. So that's what we're about. They're the kind of activities that we get involved in, the products that we produce. How do you get into land surveying? Subjects to, if you like, make sure that you include at school maths and English. Yeah. Whilst the technology is very good, you do need this underlying background of understanding the maths that's going on. A lot of trigonometry. Oh dear. And you need to quite often write reports. So English is important. Apprenticeships is one route. Yeah. At 16, if you can find a suitable employer. What do you mean by a suitable employer? Well, for the geospatial industry, we're talking about large construction companies, Balfour Beatty, large consulting engineers, O'Varrup. We're talking about organisations such as Historic England. You know, they have apprenticeships in geospatial where you're measuring historic monuments for archive purposes. And then there's traditional, what you call traditional land surveying companies, the Seven Partnership, yeah, who are doing all those activities that we've just looked at previously, and they're training people with the equipment and the processes to undertake that sort of work. An apprenticeship at level 3 typically requires 5 GCSEs at grade 4 or above. Would be 2 years, and that would be combined, if you like, on site with the surveyors, but also courses of study. Yeah, colleges at Dudley, Widnes, places like that. Probably these days a lot of it online. Yeah, so that's your typical, with a few GCSEs and getting a local employer to provide an apprenticeship. That's level 3. The level 6 apprenticeships, which are a degree level, they will require 2 A levels. And again, it's working your way through. That takes about 5.5 years. There's no cost to yourself. If you've got an employer, they'll be paying you. Your training fees will be paid. Your college expenses will effectively be paid. Okay, so 5.5 years. If you compare that to a typical undergraduate degree where you're paying the bills all the time, you've got a 3-year degree. Specific geospatial undergraduate degrees are at University of East London, University of Newcastle, places like that. You can do civil engineering degrees, which most of the universities, Greenwich, that sort of thing, will include land surveying as part of that. But specific geospatial, you're looking at University of East London or University of Newcastle. As you progress, you might be interested in a master's, and here you're looking at universities like UCL, University College London, and Nottingham. Who employs geospatial experts? Well, national and local government agencies. We're talking about the Ordnance Survey, mapping and charting establishment. Local government, that's where I began my career. Local authorities have a lot of geospatial, you know, because they're running planning, they're running housing, that sort of thing. The armed forces, that's a bit unusual, isn't it? Well, they all need location. So the Army employ geospatial specialists at mapping, but they also employ them in construction. So if they're building schools in Nepal or Kenya, they need people to do site engineering, this business of converting paper plans to marks on site. Obviously the Navy are a charting establishment, you know, the oceans of the world are charted by the Royal Navy, maps of them, that kind of thing. And the RAF, it's all about imagery from space, from aircraft, drones, that sort of thing. Okay, construction companies, the major construction companies will employ site engineers. There's traditional land survey companies, and rail and utilities are major employers of geospatial specialists. Yeah, so that's how you might get into it. Think about your career path. Whether you want an apprenticeship, whether you want to go straight in with a degree, whether you want specialist sort of work. Okay, questions. If you've got questions, that's fine. If you'd like to post them in chat, I don't know whether we've got any. And then I've got a couple of questions. Have you got any questions, Sophie?
Hello, Margaret. Yes, we've got a few questions through.
Right.
Okay, so first of all, we've got what do you like most about your role?
What do I like most? I like getting outside, I like meeting people, and I like producing something at the end that is useful to people. So whether it's a map, a report, a picture, that's what I like most about it. The combination of field work, office work, and producing something that somebody needs.
Fantastic. Okay, and somebody's asking, are there many females doing this type of work?
Well, there's me for one. Interestingly, when I very first, back in the 1970s, wanted to do land surveying, I was patted on the head and sent away and said, we don't have women do it. And they were allowed to do that. Nowadays, they're not allowed to do that. There are a number of women. I've always encouraged women. It's a very good start career. It breeds that independence for you. Yes, the ratios are not great as chartered land surveyors. I think it's probably about 5% of women, but it's improving. I wouldn't let that put you off. It didn't put me off. I found it interesting, and yes, you are a novelty, but once they see you can do the job, there's no problems.
Fantastic. Okay, So we've already gone. I've got a question about qualifications. I think you already went through that during your slide. But I've got another one. What has been the highlight of your career?
I would say surveying wise, I've got two highlights. I spent 3 weeks on a project in Papua New Guinea. Well, actually, Papua. It's the Indonesian part of the island of Papua, where I was helping geologists. We were surveying mineral locations. That was quite a highlight. Very, very different in very, very remote parts of the world. You know, forget your mobile phone, that sort of thing. So that was very interesting. Real mixture of cultures, but we always managed to understand each other. The other highlight was the Caribbean trip, surveying an island in the Caribbean. But other highlights would be the tunnels on the First World War battlefields. It's all interesting. It's all interesting because it's all different and you're meeting people. Yeah.
Thank you. That does sound really, really exciting, actually. Really interesting career to get into. Okay, let me just have a look. Oh, if you didn't do this job, what else could you do with your qualifications?
The degree in geography would have opened up all sorts of potential career paths. I've been into construction. If you like, I moved into construction, but there are other things, even healthcare, that kind of thing. It's the background knowledge that is useful to yourself. Yeah, being able to study, being able to understand. It's difficult to think what other careers I could have gone into, to be quite honest, because this one interested me. I don't feel I've answered that question. I'd need a bit more time to think about that.
No problem.
So, yeah, good question.
Okay. So is technology, this is a good one, is technology changing to help with your job?
Technology has changed massively since I first started. When I went out on a bus carrying a box and a tape measure and a tripod. Nowadays I travel in a car, but the technology has improved massively in the last 20 years. So you can effectively stand on a site and take a 3D picture of whatever it is that you're surveying, and then you process that back in the office. Location, the developments in GPS have enabled us to routinely get an exact location for wherever it is we're working. That was not the case when I started. You were working on arbitrary systems. Nowadays, you know exactly where you are and you can compare locations. And the data acquisition has improved massively, and the computer software's worked in tandem with that to improve your outputs. Yeah, it's not just a hand drawing, it's a whole range of products that you can produce.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Okay, and just one final question. So what's the most difficult place you've surveyed?
Technically the most difficult were the underground tunnels on the Somme. Because you're underground, you can't use your GPS or your sat-nav to fix your position. You have to use other techniques. So technically, anything underground like that is the most difficult to work out where you are. At another level, the most difficult sometimes can be hostility from the local population. And I've had some of that, because frequently people don't want you surveying because they don't want a housing estate built next to where they live. Yeah. So that can be difficult.
Okay, right. I think that concludes all the questions that we've had. I think, did you want to ask some questions for?
Just a couple of points in sort of summary. Where do you get more information? Geospatial Commission have got a very good article, very recent, National Apprenticeship Week, a couple of geospatial apprenticeships giving their opinions, telling you what they're doing. National Career Service, that points you in the right direction. Just look up land surveyor, you'll get a whole host of information, what you need to be like and all that kind of thing. So that was very useful. And the organisations that provide professional membership, Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, Chartered Institute of Civil Engineering Surveyors, there, look at their websites, they will talk you through job opportunities. Thank you for your time. That's my contact details. If anyone's got queries that they want specifically, I'll try and answer them. I was going to ask questions at the beginning because what I was interested to know was, where is this? Yeah, I was going to ask, but I was advised that chat doesn't work that way. Have a little think, where is it? Yeah, you might recognise it, but where is it? As surveyors, what you learn is it's there. It's got a latitude and longitude, and that places it anywhere on the globe. Yeah. If you're wanting to place it specifically on an ordnance survey map, you would use that system, those coordinates. Yeah. Next question is, okay, I know where one thing is, but what about something else? How far away is this? Again, hopefully people will recognise it. And if you've got those same sort of coordinates, you can compare them. A bit of trigonometry, and you end up with that separation of those two, if you like, iconic places in UK. Yeah, that's how they're separated in distance, and you get that out of the numbers that you see. Okay, I think that's, as I say, I wasn't able to pose that as a question, but think about it. Where is something? Yeah, you might have a postcode. Oh, it's London. Yeah, but let's narrow it down. We need systems of reference, and that's what surveying does. Okay.
Right, that's great. Thanks, Meg. We've actually had quite a few more questions come in, so would you mind answering a couple more?
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, great. So, so we've got a couple of questions from Lee. I think it's University Technical College, I think. So they want to know, are there any parts of the job that you don't like doing?
I'm not very good at admin, so it tends to be a bit chaotic. And if you looked at the state of my vehicle, you'd be absolutely appalled. So I'm not very good at cleaning up after myself.
Okay. And they also want to know, what is your role specifically?
Right, I'm actually retired.
Before you retired.
Okay. Initially, I began my career, if you like, as a junior surveyor working for a local authority. I then progressed through the ranks to senior surveyor, and I headed up a section of 4 surveyors. And then we had a specific project where I took on an extra 12 surveyors to get the project done. Okay, so that was my career in a structure. I left that structure and ran my own company. So again, at one stage I had about 6 people working for me. At that stage I also started a role in teaching, so I'm teaching land surveying. So my actual role there was, if you like, as an instructor. Nowadays I am retired, so I still go out on site. I still enjoy the field work, but it is by and large just me. But because of the contacts that I've built up over the nearly 50 years I've been in survey, I still know people. I'm still able to sort of help people with their careers, and yeah, join in with things.
That's fantastic. Just one final question: are there any other benefits to your job?
I think working outside can be quite healthy for you. You're not sitting in front of a screen all day, so you're fairly active. So it's got that benefit, and I think because you're engaging with a whole cross section of population, that can be interesting. Keeps your mind ticking over. So there are hidden benefits for your general welfare, physical and mental welfare in surveying, because of its variety and the fact that you're different locations, different jobs, different ranges of people.
That's great. Okay, so I just want to say, so I can definitely feel your passion, and it's great that you've shared this wonderful career with our audience. So thank you very much, Margaret.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity.